Hey guys, so today I'm going to teach you how to do the Columbia makeup that I do. Just a little disclaimer, I'm saying the makeup that I do because I do a more theatrical version of Columbia makeup. It's not 100% screen accurate, but it looks better when your audience members are sitting 10 feet away from you and Little Nell's face is 10 feet tall on the screen behind you. And a lot of these techniques are really good for doing stage makeup and making stage makeup stay on your face for 2 hours at a time while you're running around, even if you're not Columbia. So I'll walk you guys through everything, even the eyebrows. So let's get started. Now, of course, I'm starting with a clean face, and the first thing we're going to do with our eyebrows is I'm going to take this little comb and I am going to brush my eyebrows straight up. And the reason we're doing this is because when you brush your eyebrows straight up, this allows the hair to lay as flat as possible to the rest of your face. And this is really important because this is where concealing brows can look really bad, is when you can still see all the hair in the brow. Now, I use the glue stick and powder method, and that's because that's what works for me best because I have super thick brows, and the glue and powder is still really easy to get out of your eyebrows. A lot of people also like scar wax, but I find that works better with people for thinner brows, mostly because it's kind of hard to get all that product out, and for me, every night, that's just too much. And glue and powder just washes out with a little bit of water, nothing else. So I'm going to take my glue stick. I use the purple one because the nice thing about the purple is the second it turns clear, it's just tacky enough to add the powder. So when you first take it, you want to work against the grain of your eyebrow. And this is really going to get that glue up into your eyebrow. And we're going to do it on both sides, of course. And so once you get that glue really up in your eyebrow, really, don't be afraid. It's Elmer's non-toxic. Once you get it up in your eyebrow, we're going to take our little comb again, and we're going to brush up. And yeah, this isn't the most fun process. This isn't the most painless process either. I remember CJ actually told me when I was learning how to do my eyebrows, if you press them into your head and it doesn't hurt, you're doing it wrong, which I think says a lot. So once you get these all combed up, you're going to take some powder and you're going to press them into place. Now, personally, what I use is it's called the Jane Iredale Face Powder, but pretty much I just recommend any full coverage powder. This is a powder that's going to be more of a color than transparent. And of course, I use the, if I cannot drop it, I use the stupid pale color because Columbia. And so with a little powder puff, I am going to get that powder up in my eyebrow. And as you can see, that's a whole lot of an improvement. Now, normally when I'm doing stage, I tend to use anywhere from 2 to 4 layers of powder and glue, just because I have really thick eyebrows. Some people can get away with 2, some people I've seen it take as many as 6. So do as many layers of glue, let it dry, powder as you need to fully conceal your brows. And you'll see what mine look like when I'm completely done. So this is what I look like. I'm kind of an alien without eyebrows, but that's what you should expect. And so I'm just going to do my final layer of powder and glue. And one thing to keep in mind when you're doing your eyebrows is it's not about concealing the color of your eyebrows, but it's about flattening down the texture. And that's what you want to look for. So when you see those little bumps and gaps in the hairs, feel free to go over a part, fill it in with more glue and powder than the rest of your brow if you need to. I know for me, the middle can sometimes pop up a whole lot. And so you're going to put that powder on. And when you're doing these powder applications, really make sure you're pressing it into your face, basically, because you're trying to get that hair as flat back as possible. Because, I mean, you can see my brows went from pretty sculpted to almost an inch tall because I'm pressing that hair back so much. So I'm going to take my powder, and I kind of dab it on first to get it all set to pick up the glue. And then I really press it into my head. I mean, really, beauty is pain. And so these are my eyebrows, or lack thereof, rather. And so I'm just going to prime my eyes and my face real quick, and then we'll move on to her eyes. Now, even if you don't use primer normally in your day-to-day makeup, I do recommend getting it for stage makeup. I use primer day-to-day, but that's because I have oily skin. But I find for theatrical makeup, it's really important because it really locks everything in, especially if you're going to be running around and sweating all night. And also, that's one good way to think of theatrical makeup is a lot of balancing of putting down a cream and then setting it with a powder, or putting down a primer, putting down a cream, and setting it with a powder. And that's what a lot of the Columbia makeup is. So we're going to move on to the eyes, and first up I have the Jane Iredale lip pencil. This is in the color Berry, but pretty much any burgundy colored pencil will do the trick. Now, Little Nell's eyebrows are like this really rounded out, perfect McDonald's Golden Arches type arch, and I don't really like that. I alter most of my character's makeup to fit my face better, or else it looks really weird on your face. So what I do is I'm going to go on top of my eyebrow, and I'm going to trace my eyebrow's natural shape. And so that it follows my eyebrow's natural shape, it fits my face better, but it's still that really high arched Columbia eyebrow. So I'm just going to go through, and I'm just going through where the top of those hairs are. All right, cool. And then so once I have those, I'm going to take this NYX little red blush. It's in Crimson. And this is what I use to set a lot of Columbia's stuff. So I'm just going to take it with a little liner brush. And I'm going to go through. And this helps create a better red color than just using like a red lipstick pencil and then that be it. I find using different tones of the same color and then layering them, you end up with more depth. And then, of course, like I said, it lasts a lot longer, which is really important for me. Because I have seen too many stage makeup where by the end it's just dripping off your face. And that's never good when people want pictures with you after. So I'm just going to set these eyebrows. And then what we're going to do is her entire eye is gold, or it's technically a peachy gold, but I just use regular gold. So I have the 24-hour Maybelline cream shadow, and it's just in bold gold, but any gold cream shadow will do the job. This is a makeup routine that can be done with everything under $5, or everything can be high-end. It's really up to you and what products work for you. Now, for me personally, I like having really clean lines on my Columbia makeup. So before I start my eyes, I map out on the sides exactly where I want that outer edge of gold to be. So I know exactly where it's going by the time I get over here, and then I don't have this muddy line. It's a really crisp line instead. Now, one thing to keep in mind, especially if you do use a cream shadow, is when you go over your brow with the cream shadow, make sure you work it in the direction of the hair. Because this will, A, help fill those gaps, those little minuscule gaps in the hair that the glue and powder just can't quite get. But I have unfortunately learned that if you work against the grain, you can actually break down all of that glue and powder and you have to start over, which is why I have had some snafus with Columbia makeup in the past. So once you get all this gold on your face, you're actually not done yet. Now, like I was saying, I do my theatrical makeup in a lot of layering because I find it sticks this way the best. So after that, I am going to take, this is Bare Minerals Pure Pigment in True Gold, but everyone sells gold pigment. NYX has a gold pigment, MAC has a gold pigment. It's up to you. So I'm just going to take this and pack it all over my entire gold area. I know some Columbias like putting glitter all over this gold section. I know some Columbias just do glitter on the brow. I know some Columbias do more of the screen accurate color, which is kind of this peachy gold. But I like doing the theatrical makeup that looks relatively screen accurate. So I do true gold and a whole lot of shine. So once that is set, we can move on to the wings. Now I just use a pen liner. I find this is the easiest thing to work with because if I was using a brush every night, I would probably have to redo my Columbia wings about 5 times before I leave the house. So I find this is the easiest way to really make that big sweeping wing. And so the trick that I've learned is you're going to start at the outside corner of your eye and basically just follow the shape up to your eyebrow so that it creates almost a circle with the eyebrow. And so I take it over the eye. Now I'm not taking up the entire eye, but I'm getting pretty close to taking up the entire eye. And I take it up and over. Now Columbia has a really thick wing. That's something to keep in mind. Her wing doesn't extend and like fly out or anything. The entire thing is pretty thick all together. The wing doesn't tail off or anything. So that's something to keep in mind. It's pretty much a triangle of black on the top of your lid. So keep that in mind. So Columbia's eyeliner technically rims all the way around her eye, but I don't do that because I like keeping my eyes more open on stage. So what I usually do is I've put gold on my inner corner of my eye, and I am just going to start where my lashes start and take the liner back. And don't be afraid to make that bottom line thick as well. This is not your normal going to the office makeup. This can be a little bit more. Now, as with everything else that we've done so far, we're going to set it. And I find this is one of my biggest tricks, is that people don't realize that most liners should probably be set. And I especially do this because there's so much gold underneath the black that you can already see the gold poking through when I initially do it, let alone when it starts wearing off. So I am just using the black from my Lorac Pro palette. It's just a really good solid matte black. I'd also recommend the Urban Decay Blackout eyeshadow as well, but any just really good matte black will do the trick. And so I am going to set all of this. And it just gives it that much more of a jet black feel than black that got painted on top of gold. And it's also the little things like this that help your makeup photograph really well too. So those are the entire Columbia eyes, gold, red, black, and normally I do a ton of mascara, false lashes, everything like that. I'll just do that in the break. And then so we're going to continue on with the face, and it's more just than just those little red stripes. Now, before I put on foundation for Columbia, I actually highlight before I do anything else. And this is just because I like being a really glowy, glittery Columbia. And it gives your face a lot of light when you're on stage as well. And so I'm just taking the Benefit Watts Up highlighter and putting it on all the high planes on my face. There's no need to be really precise about this because it is going under your foundation. And I'm just going to roughly blend it just so it's not sitting right there on top of my skin. Now I've already primed, and after I primed, I put translucent powder on top of my primer. For me, this is a really helpful technique because it absorbs excess oils in both your skin and the primer. So if you have oily skin, that's a really good trick before you use primer. So now that we're blended out a little, I'm gonna put my foundation on. And even though I have a total love of high-end makeup and luxury makeup and everything like that, my stage foundation has, since the dawn of time, actually been the Revlon Color Stay. I haven't really found anything else that gives as much coverage with as much comfortability as this line. And it's also really nice because it comes in formulas for dry, oily, or combo skin, which I feel is really important because we all have different skin. So why shouldn't makeup reflect that? Ooh, so much. So yeah, don't be afraid to be heavy-handed, obviously. I mean, it does kind of look like she's wearing a mask. One common misconception is that she's clown white, but as far as your neck versus your face goes, Magenta and Frank actually have the biggest difference between their neck and their face. Columbia is actually, that's pretty close to her natural skin color. Little Nell does not have a whole lot of color, despite being from Australia, you would think. But make sure you do blend it down your face. Now, for my Jane Iredale powder and for this Revlon foundation, I am using the lightest color they make. That's because that is my natural color. However, for Little Nell and Magenta, I would always recommend picking a shade or two lighter than your natural skin tone or mixing it with white, whatever is easiest for you, just because it reads better as those characters. So, once that is on, I'm going to take some lipstick. And this can be any lipstick you like, cheap lipstick, expensive lipstick, whatever it is. I'm just using Urban Decay, apparently. And so start basically at your temple up here, and you're just going to draw a straight line. And so I find the easiest way to do this is to draw a pretty thin line and blend it out. Another big mistake I usually see with Columbia's is they always make these lines really fat too. If you look at her makeup, they're really not. They're pretty thin, and they don't go far into her cheek. They're pretty much essentially where your contour would be, just moved up, but they're that size that your contour should be. Now, once I have that, I'm going to take my NYX red blush again, and as always, I'm going to set it. And you can see this just gives it a way better color intensity, and then of course it's going to stay all night. And another trick that I've learned is that most Columbia wigs don't really fit people's heads quite right, especially if you're like me and you have a lot of really thick hair. So usually once I get the wig on, I'll take this same powder and kind of like work it into my temples so the hair and my wig blend together better. And so I'm just going to repeat that on the other side. Now, I find the biggest challenge for Columbia makeup for most people is really just finding what products work for you. So don't be afraid to experiment with things. Figure out what works. I mean, half of this is lip products on my face and not face products, but it's what I've found sits on my face the best. And don't be afraid to have a heavy hand with your contouring, because you have made your face so pale, basically, that it's really easy to then get washed out. I always make sure that I do my contour right under that stripe, because if you separate it at all, it'll give you this weird highlighted stripe in between essentially your blush and your contour, which is not what you're going for. And my jaw always too. Because you can really quickly look like a moon face if your jaw isn't contoured out. But contour whatever it is you think you need or want to contour. It's all up to you. And then Columbia does have a little beauty mark. It's easy to remember because everything is on her left side. Sometimes I make it a heart, sometimes I make it a star. I've done a little rhinestone, but usually it's just the one, and it's on her left side. And then finally, last but not least, lipstick. So I use this CoverGirl 2-part lipstick, and I find this is just the absolute longest lasting lipstick I've ever used. And it's just lasted through anything I've put it through. Now, Little Nell technically has this like point on her lips, but I've never gotten it to look good on me. Now, I know CJ, he consistently does that when he does his Columbia makeup, but that's because his natural lip shape contributes to it, and it actually looks really good on him. But for me, I just slightly overfill my natural lips. And I think it's things like that that's one of the hardest things for shadow casters to learn, is that you don't have to do exactly what they're doing, but kind of alter it to work for your face and your facial features better. Because I don't have a single one of Little Nell's features, so I have to kind of change it, make the brow shape work with my natural brow, make the lip shape work a little better with my natural lips. But Patricia Quinn, I have the facial features closest to hers. So for magenta makeup, I can go screen accurate and it looks fine. But if I do 100% screen accurate Columbia makeup, I look terrible. So always remember to experiment with your products and experiment with exactly how the shape is going on your face. But there you are, there's the entire Columbia look. Just make sure everything is all set and good to go, and you should be good for an entire midnight double feature. Thanks, guys.